Chapter 141. Chapter 141. Fellow Taoist, please stay. The battle from start to finish lasted only a dozen or so breaths. It was unbelievably fast. The blood and fire three brothers are just gone like that. In the black market, many people were dumbfounded, staring blankly in Li Chang'an's direction. When the battle first began, who could have predicted such an outcome? I must never offend this Li fan in the future. Many people secretly warned themselves. That venerable soul banner was simply too terrifying, truly worthy of being called an evil artifact. In a corner, Luo Beidong was shaken to his core. He had thought Li Chang'an would only be able to save his own skin. But Li Chang'an had instead gone on a killing spree. It seems I've underestimated Taoist Li. When he looked at Li Chang'an again, a hint of wariness and awe had entered his eyes, but he wasn't terrified like the other cultivators. After all, he was Li Chang'an's friend and had no conflict of interest with him. Outside the black market, Li Chang'an put away the soul banner and was about to leave. Just then, an aged voice sounded by his ear. "Please wait, fellow Taoist." Hearing this voice, Li Chang'an's heart skipped a beat. Those 4 words were hardly a good omen, reminding him of a character from the stories of the investiture of the gods from his past life. He didn't stop. Instead, he quickened his pace. His whole body transformed into a streak of light, speeding far away from the black market. Seeing this, the voice rang out again. "Taoist Li, please wait. I mean you no harm. I simply wish to invite you to join my 3 Tribulations Alliance." The 3 Tribulations Alliance. Li Chang'an's interest was piqued. He had heard this name before. The 3 Tribulations Alliance was a league formed by 3 tribulation cultivator factions. The reason they allied was not to fight against righteous cultivators, but to contend with the 5 poison wanderer lineage. This was because the 5 poison wanderer lineage was simply too powerful and had seized too many benefits. None of the other tribulation cultivator factions could challenge the 5 poison wanderer lineage on their own. They could only band together and fight as one. "Taoist Li, surely you've heard of my 3 Tribulations Alliance." The old voice continued to persuade him, and indeed, there was no malice to be heard in his words. "I know you like to go it alone, but a single tree doesn't make a forest. If you join our 3 Tribulations Alliance, you'll gain access to more information and have more channels to acquire cultivation resources." Hearing this, Li Chang'an temporarily stopped. He turned to look back. Behind him stood an old man with white hair and a white beard, a withered figure clad in a black robe. The old man smiled. "I am Hu Yu. It is a pleasure to meet you, Taoist Li." "Taoist Hu, may I ask which faction of the 3 Tribulations Alliance you belong to?" Li Chang'an asked, his expression wary. Hu Yu replied, "I am from Withered Wood Cliff." The 3 factions of the 3 Tribulations Alliance were Blood Beast Valley, Black Puppet Pavilion, and Withered Wood Cliff. Although these 3 factions had no foundation establishment great cultivators, they all possessed means comparable to the foundation establishment realm. Blood Beast Valley had a Tier 2 great demon, Black Puppet Pavilion had a Tier 2 puppet, and Withered Wood Cliff had an extremely bizarre Tier 2 spirit plant. According to rumor, that spirit plant was very strange and needed to devour blood and flesh daily. Li Chang'an thought for a moment, then asked, "What will I be required to do after joining Withered Wood Cliff?" "You don't have to do anything, it's just an extra identity," Hu Yu said with a smile. The 3 Tribulations Alliance didn't have many rules. After all, tribulation cultivators were a group of cultivators who would stop at nothing for personal gain. As long as there were benefits, they would act. There was no need for rules to bind them. If there were too many rules and regulations, it would inevitably make people uncomfortable. How would that be any different from those righteous influences? With that said, Hu Yu produced an identity token. This token was made of spirit wood, and on its surface was the engraved character for Withered. Withered Wood Cliff, like Black Wind Mountain, had no fixed base of operations, and its members came and went as they pleased. In the black market, there are several private back rooms that my 3 Tribulations Alliance rents long-term. We occasionally post missions, hold trade fairs, exchange information, and so on. And this token is the key to enter those back rooms. As he spoke, the token slowly floated over and hovered in front of Li Chang'an. Li Chang'an grabbed it and instantly began its refinement. The next moment, He saw the information contained within the token. I see. The Tier 2 spirit plan of Withered Wood Cliff is a section of a withered vine. It possesses Foundation establishment level combat power and is controlled by the Withered Wood Cliff Master. The idea of a piece of withered vine having Foundation establishment level combat power was simply incredible. According to the information in the token, the withered vine was extremely weak and needed to be fed blood and flesh rich in spiritual chi every day, or it would risk withering away completely. Not far away, Hu Yu smiled. Taoist Li, what do you think? Joining my Withered Wood Cliff is equivalent to having a Foundation establishment backer. Fine, as long as you don't force me to go up against the 5 Poison Wander lineage. Haha, we will. And just like that, the identity of Li Fan officially became a member of a Tribulation cultivator faction. The smile on Hu Yu's face grew warmer, and he immediately began to explain the specifics of the 3 Tribulations alliance to him. The founder of Blood Beast Valley was a renegade disciple from the beast-taming Zhou family. It said he suffered unfair treatment within the Zhou family, so he defected with a Tier 2 great demon. The founder of the Black Puppet Pavilion has a similar story. He's a renegade disciple from the Puppetry Mo family. Speaking of which, only the identity of the Withered Wood Cliff Master was relatively mysterious. The withered vine in his possession was equally mysterious. After all, it was rare to see such a bizarre spirit plant. Many people suspected that the withered vine was originally higher than Tier 2, but had suffered a grievous injury that caused its tier to drop. Some also say that the withered vine is just a branch from a more powerful spirit plant, and that its main body might be a Tier 3 or even Tier 4 spirit plant. Hu Yu and Li Chang'an headed back to the black market, chatting freely along the way. Li Chang'an asked him, by that count, the 3 Tribulations Alliance has 3 Foundation establishment level combatants. Can't you just directly annihilate the 5 Poison Wanderer lineage? Taoist Li, it seems you don't know enough about the 5 Poison Wanderer lineage. Hu Yu shook his head and sighed. According to him, the 5 Poison Wanderer himself was a powerhouse at the middle stage of Foundation establishment. He had taken over a dozen disciples. His first disciple was an expert at the early stage of Foundation establishment, and while his second and third disciples weren't at Foundation establishment, they possessed Foundation establishment level combat power. Not at Foundation establishment, yet they have its combat power. How is that possible? Li Chang'an was confused. He subconsciously thought of his own fake Foundation establishment state. Hu Yu explained, the 5 Poison Wanderer has cultivated 2 Tier 2 poisonous insects. After his disciples merge with the poisonous insects, their strength increases explosively for a short time, allowing them to barely cross the threshold of Foundation establishment. Such a strange thing actually exists. Indeed, when I first heard of it, I found it just as incredible as you do, Taoist Li. It had to be said. The Cultivation immortality realm truly had too many strange and bizarre techniques. By that calculation, the 5 Poison Wanderers side had 4 Foundation establishment level combatants, so it was natural they could suppress the 3 Tribulations alliance. Soon, the 2 of them returned to the black market. Hu Yu took Li Chang'an in and out of several back rooms, introducing him to many of the 3 Tribulations alliance's tribulation cultivators. Taoist Li, this back room is specifically for posting missions. You can view all the internal missions of the 3 Tribulations alliance here, and you can also post missions of your own. Hu Yu brought Li Chang'an to the last back room and gave him a detailed introduction. Any member can post a mission, as long as the reward is sufficient. You can even hire the Tier 2 powers within the alliance. Chapter 142. Chapter 142. Advancement in Skills. Not long after, Li Chang'an left the secret room. Before he left, he also posted 2 missions. One was to search for bone-washing grass, and the other was to find advancement treasures for earth element demon beasts. The rewards he offered were quite high, about 10 to 20% above market price. The 3 Tribulations Alliance is a major power in the Yellow Crane Immortal City region. They should be able to help me find some treasures, right? Li Chang'an had originally wanted to post a mission for a Tier 2 demon core as well. But after some thought, he decided it wasn't very practical and gave up the idea. After all, the leaders of the 3 major powers were only at the Qi refining 9th layer. Their so-called Foundation establishment combat strength relied purely on demon beasts, puppets, and spirit plants. If any treasures related to Foundation establishment were to appear, they would certainly be intercepted by the leaders of these three powers. Several months later, Chang'an began to receive some news intermittently. It was all related to bone-tempering grass. He made several trips to the black market for transactions, obtaining some bone-tempering grass. In addition, bone-tempering grass would occasionally appear in shops like the 10,000 Treasures Tower, and he bought it all. I'm still short a bit, but at this rate, I should be able to gather it all soon. Chang'an was especially satisfied with this progress. He had to admit, there were definite advantages to joining a major power. During this time, he no longer had to worry about the treasures needed for body refinement and could focus on honing his talisman art. On this day at dusk, Chang'an gazed at a talisman on his desk, a look of delight on his face. A high-quality talisman, I finally succeeded. The talisman on the desk was a giant shield talisman. It was considered a high-quality item among Tier 2 low-grade talismans. Once activated, it could form a giant spirit shield in front of the user. This breakthrough in my skills took a little longer than I expected. Chang'an mused. This was mainly because his focus had been divided by other matters. Still, things had gone smoothly overall. After all, his proficiency had been steadily increasing, without hitting any bottlenecks. At this point, Chang'an had completely mastered the contents of the Tier 2 low-grade talismanic inheritance. Once again, he had reached the end of the road in his study of talismans. He had no further inheritance to learn from. It would be difficult to improve his skills any further. My current talisman art is sufficient for now. I'll continue to hone my proficiency and try to raise my success rate to over 90%. Chang'an set his goal and stopped worrying about his future inheritance. He picked up his talisman brush and began to paint a high-quality talisman called the Jade Sword Talisman. The sword chi released by this talisman was even more fearsome than that of the Blood Sword Talisman. A few days later in the morning, Chang'an was in the middle of talisman painting. Suddenly, a visitor arrived outside. "Brother Li, are you home?" "Yuyan." Hearing the familiar voice, Chang'an paused for a moment before getting up. He walked into the courtyard and opened the gate. Standing outside was the graceful and elegant Su Yuyan. She wore a pale yellow dress, her eyes curving into crescents as she smiled. She was bright and captivating. "Brother Li, you really did move to Yellow Crane Immortal City." "Yes, I moved here a while ago." Chang'an nodded, a smile appearing on his face as well. He was currently in the borrowed state, his strength close to the Foundation establishment realm, so he could sense that Su Yuyan had already reached Qi refining 9th layer in her cultivation. Of course, in Su Yuyan's eyes, he was merely at the Qi refining 6th layer. Chang'an asked her, "Yuyan, are you planning for your Foundation establishment?" "Yes, but my master was worried my temperament wasn't steady enough, so she had me come down the mountain with my junior sister to train for a while longer." As she spoke, Su Yuyan introduced the person beside her to Chang'an. Beside her stood a female cultivator named Zhang Yuerong at the Qi refining 7th layer. She was Su Yuyan's junior sister. On this trip down the mountain, Su Yuyan's role was just like her senior sister Yuan Ying's on their last outing. She was there to both temper herself and protect her junior sister. Chang'an cupped his hands in greeting to Zhang Yuerong. "Taoist Zhang." "Taoist Li, my senior sister often mentions you." Zhang Yuerong, dressed in a white gown, replied with a smile. She sized Chang'an up, a flicker of imperceptible surprise in her beautiful eyes. This was because she had always assumed that someone Su Yuyan would call brother must be quite powerful, at least at the 8th or 9th layer of Qi refining. But Chang'an was only at the Qi refining 6th layer, not even a match for her. However, she concealed her emotions well and showed no sign of anything being amiss. Afterward, Chang'an invited the two into his courtyard and brewed them some fine spirit tea. "Brother Li, have you run into any trouble in Yellow Crane Immortal City?" Su Yuyan's eyes were lively as she looked at Chang'an. She was worried that Chang'an's strength was too low and that he might be bullied in Yellow Crane Immortal City. After all, this wasn't King Marketplace. This was the inner city of an immortal city where the streets were filled with cultivators stronger than Chang'an. Chang'an shook his head with a smile. "Yuyan, there's no need to worry. I haven't gotten into any conflicts since I arrived. The order in the immortal city is quite good. That's good. Su Yuyan's face lit up with a smile, her worries eased. She said with a grin, Brother Li, if anyone tries to bully you, feel free to use my name. You can use the reputation of the Cyan Cloud sect to put them in their place. The moment these words left her mouth, Jiang Yuerong's expression changed. This sort of thing was forbidden by the sect. The sect elders most detested loose cultivators, who used the Cyan Cloud sect's name to oppress others. Jiang Yuerong said worriedly, Senior sister, before we left, Master instructed us not to. Junior sister. Su Yuyan cut her off directly. Don't worry, Brother Li is kind-hearted. He wouldn't just go around bullying people. But Jiang Yuerong's lips parted, but she hesitated to say more. But when she noticed a stern look in Su Yuyan's eyes, she had no choice but to close her mouth. Su Yuyan was particularly pleased by this. The last time she'd left the mountain, her senior sister Yuan Ying had been managing her every move. This time, she was finally the one in charge of someone else. Li Chang'an sat across from the two of them, taking in the subtle change. He spoke up, Yuyan, have you prepared all the treasures you need for foundation establishment? Don't worry, Brother Li. I exposed a spy for the sect earlier, saving it from a disaster. The merit points I earned were enough to exchange for a foundation establishment pill. As for the foundation establishment spiritual object, my master has already prepared one for me. Su Yuyan said with a sweet smile, recounting her experiences within the sect. Her preparations for foundation establishment were much easier than Li Chang'an's. She had gathered all the necessary treasures with almost no effort. This made Li Chang'an sigh with emotion. Having a major sect at your back really makes a difference. The path of cultivation is so much smoother than it is for a loose cultivator. If the Cyan Cloud sect hadn't rejected me back then, where would I be now? The thought flashed through his mind. But alas, there are no what-ifs in this world. Yuyan, your foundation establishment is imminent. I don't have much else to give you, but this booklet contains some insights from a sword cultivator. Just take a look. Li Chang'an handed her the journal of insights that Pei Yingyao had given him. Su Yuyan was also a sword cultivator. The insights of a foundation establishment sword cultivator like this should be beneficial to her. Thank you, Brother Li. Su Yuyan accepted the journal with a smile. Although the insights were probably useless to her, she still cherished it greatly. After all, it was a token of Li Chang'an's goodwill. Chapter 143. Chapter 143. An enemy arrives. Within the Cyan Cloud sect's library, there were many written insights left behind by senior sword cultivators. Many of them were from foundation establishment cultivators. Su Yuyan had already read many of them. She didn't believe that a loose cultivator like Li Chang'an could get his hands on any particularly good insights from a sword cultivator. However, the moment she opened the booklet, a terrifying sword intent washed over her, making her tremble and nearly drop the booklet she was holding. Su Yuyan gripped the booklet tightly, a storm raging in her heart. This sword intent was even purer than her master's. Her master was a powerful cultivator at the late stage of foundation establishment. How astonishing must the cultivator who left this sword intent behind be? Yuyan, what's wrong? Li Chang'an noticed something was amiss and quickly asked. It's nothing. Su Yuyan took a deep breath. She looked up at Li Chang'an, her feelings a complicated mix. Brother Li, these insights are immensely beneficial to me. I really don't know how to thank you. Thank me for what? There's no need for thanks between us. Li Chang'an waved his hand. The item was completely useless to him. If it was useful to Su Yuyan, then nothing could be better. Nearby, Jiang Yuerong glanced at Su Yuyan with suspicion. He suspected the insights were actually useless to Su Yuyan. Su Yuyan was just saying that to spare Li Chang'an's feelings. Senior sister is being way too nice to this brother of hers. She's not like this with the other male disciples in the sect. For them, even getting a glimpse of her is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Jiang Yuerong grumbled to herself. Just then, Su Yuyan asked Li Chang'an a question. Brother Li, could my junior sister take a look at these insights as well? I think they'll be of great help to her too. Of course. Thank you, Brother Li. With that, Su Yuyan immediately tugged on Jiang Yuerong's arm. Her expression was serious as she warned her. Junior sister, guard your mind. This sword intent is quite intense. I'm worried you won't be able to withstand it. No. Zhang Yuerong was incredulous. She thought Su Yuyan was exaggerating. The sword intent contained in these insights can't possibly be stronger than our master, can it? She didn't pay it much mind, taking the booklet and opening it. In the next instant, the astonishing sword intent rushed at her. It was like a sharp sword, polished for countless years, unstoppable and irresistibly sharp, as if it would cut her down on the spot. Zhang Yuerong's face paled in terror, and the booklet in her hands fell to the ground. Her pretty face was ashen. She stared at the booklet with lingering fear, taking several deep breaths in a row. How could such a terrifying sword intent exist? She just couldn't understand it. None of the sword intents left behind in the Cyan Cloud Sect's library could compare. Junior sister, I told you to guard your mind. Did you not take my words seriously? Su Yuyan glanced at her, then picked up the booklet. Zhang Yuerong was instantly ashamed. She really hadn't taken it seriously. Otherwise, she wouldn't have lost her composure like that. It would have been fine if it were just the two of them. But Li Chang'an, an outsider, was also present. Zhang Yuerong's face flushed red, feeling quite embarrassed. Li Chang'an smiled. It's all right. My reaction was pretty much the same the first time I opened it. I almost thought a sword was going to fly out of it. Hearing this, Zhang Yuerong relaxed a little. She could tell that Li Chang'an was trying to ease the tension, and her impression of him instantly improved. This brother of senior sisters is actually quite easy to get along with, much better than those guys in the sect. It's a shame his talent is so poor. In the cultivation immortality realm, talent was ultimately the most important thing. If one's talent was too poor, it didn't matter how good their personality was. They would eventually be forgotten by the passage of time. Afterward, Su Yuyan and Zhang Yuerong studied the insights together, gradually becoming engrossed. Li Chang'an didn't disturb them. He leisurely sipped his tea while pondering how to develop his network in the future. Yuyan has the sect's support. She won't be short on Foundation Establishment pills or Foundation Establishment spiritual objects, so her chances of success should be quite high. If Su Yuyan could succeed in her Foundation Establishment, then Li Chang'an would have a second friend at the Foundation Establishment realm. Moreover, this friend would be a member of a sect. As far as he knew, in the Cyan Cloud sect, as long as a disciple achieved Foundation Establishment success, their status would be promoted from disciple to elder. Their standing would rise dramatically, and their authority would increase significantly. When the time comes, perhaps I can go through Yuyan to exchange for some treasures from the Cyan Cloud sect's treasure vault. Li Chang'an thought to himself. After all, the Cyan Cloud sect was a major power with a golden core master presiding over it, and it had a 1,000-year-old heritage. Its foundations were much deeper than Yellow Crane Immortal City's. The sect treasure vault surely held many treasures that were rare in the outside world. However, only members of the Cyan Cloud sect could exchange contribution points for treasures. I can give Yuyan some treasures I don't need, have her exchange them for contribution points, and then have her get me something I can use. Li Chang'an considered it and felt this method should be feasible. The premise was, Su Yuyan had to succeed in her Foundation Establishment. If she failed her Foundation Establishment, she would just remain an ordinary sect disciple. Presenting too many treasures at once would definitely arouse suspicion. Time flew by, and before they knew it, dusk had fallen. Su Yuyan and Zhang Yuerong seemed to have entered a state of epiphany, remaining completely still without even blinking. After some more time had passed, they finally broke out of that special state and came back to their senses in unison. This time, both of them had gained a lot. Su Yuyan even felt that her confidence in reaching Foundation Establishment had increased. Master was right. You really do have to go out and gain experience. You can't just stay in the sect in closed-door cultivation. Yeah, if I hadn't come down the mountain with you this time, senior sister, how could I have experienced such a sword intent? Zhang Yuerong nodded in agreement. Although there were many powerful sword intents in the Cyan Cloud sect, they all seemed to lean toward being peaceful and conservative. But the sword intent contained in these insights was incredibly sharp, as if born for slaughter. The two of them thanked Li Chang'an once again. By now, the sky had grown dark. The three of them didn't talk for long. Su Yuyan left with Zhang Yuerong for the time being, planning to return the next day. That night, Li Chang'an soaked in his medicinal barrel as usual. The flesh and blood of his entire body ached faintly, as if it were being constantly torn apart and reassembled, growing ever stronger. Before he knew it, the time reached midnight. A golden light appeared. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, neutral. The Cow family's young dragon, Xianxia, has achieved foundation establishment success. He has come to Yellow Crane Immortal City intending to kill you, but is blocked by Su Yuyan. The Cow family's young dragon. Li Chang'an's brow furrowed. He wasn't surprised that this person had successfully reached foundation establishment. After all, the man's talent was likely no weaker than Zheng Qingqing's, and with the support of both the Cyan Cloud sect and the Cow family, his chances of reaching foundation establishment were very high as long as nothing went wrong. But what he didn't understand was, why does Xianxia want to kill me? For revenge for his younger brother, Xianxia. Li Chang'an stared at the divination, lost in thought for a long time. When he killed Xianxia, there were no outsiders present. This matter, besides him, only heaven and earth knew. Chapter 144. Chapter 144. Li Chang'an is my heart demon. Logically, no third party should have known that Li Chang'an had killed Xianxia. Yet the divination indicated that Xianxia had come to Yellow Crane Immortal City for the sole purpose of killing Li Chang'an. Why is this happening? Li Chang'an couldn't make sense of it, no matter how hard he thought. Suddenly, he recalled what Xianxia had said before his death, that the two brothers were of one heart, and his older brother would be able to sense his death. At the time, Li Chang'an had assumed that Xianxia would, at most, only be able to sense the time and place of his brother's death. But now it seemed his initial assumption had been wrong. What exactly is this so-called one heart between brothers? Li Chang'an pondered for a long while. He had never heard of anything like it. However, in the cultivation immortality realm, there were simply too many inexplicable phenomena. Anything one could imagine, and even things one couldn't, was possible. Forget it, I'll deal with whatever comes my way. Li Chang'an took a deep breath to calm himself. In any case, the divination showed that Su Yuyan had intercepted Xianxia. Xianxia just achieved foundation establishment, so he's only at the early stage. Yuyan's master, on the other hand, is a veteran late-stage foundation establishment cultivator with high status and a wide network. That should be enough to deter Xianxia. Of course, Su Yuyan couldn't protect him forever. But Li Chang'an wasn't worried. The Tier 2 profound water turtle he possessed was his greatest trump card. The next morning, Su Yuyan and Zhang Yuerong paid another visit. Li Chang'an brewed a pot of fine tea, and the three of them resumed their conversation. During their talk, he casually inquired about the sect treasure vault. Su Yuyan saw what he was getting at. She would have refused anyone else, but Li Chang'an was different. She wanted to help Li Chang'an to begin with. Brother Li, as long as you have enough contribution points, you can exchange them for treasures in the sect treasure vault. Just don't get too carried away. Senior sister is right. People have done it before. The sect usually turns a blind eye as long as you don't make a big scene, Zhang Yuerong added with a nod. According to them, Li Chang'an wouldn't be the first to do something like this. In the past, other sect disciples had exchanged for items from the sect treasure vault for their friends and family outside the sect. The sect's higher-ups generally didn't look too closely into such matters. After all, most of them had done the same thing back in the day. But there was one condition: don't take it too far. 2 years ago, a disciple went too far. He traded a huge pile of low-tier treasures for contribution points, then used them to acquire several rare high-tier treasures from the sect treasure vault. The Grand Elder couldn't stand it any longer and expelled him from the sect. After they finished speaking, Li Chang'an had a general idea of the situation. If I use common Tier 2 treasures to trade for a few, slightly rarer Tier 2 treasures, it probably won't be considered going too far. In short, the Cyan Cloud sect valued personal relationships, but you couldn't let the sect take too big of a loss. The disciple who was expelled had indeed gone too far. He was essentially undermining the sect's very foundation. Just as they were speaking, a powerful foundation establishment aura suddenly bore down on Li Chang'an's residence. A senior is visiting. A look of surprise appeared on Su Yuyan's face. How could someone with Li Chang'an's level of cultivation have any connection to a foundation establishment great cultivator? But she quickly realized something was wrong. Accompanying the Foundation establishment aura was a dense, suffocating killing intent. Bang! The courtyard gate was suddenly blasted open by an immense force. A tall man with a cold expression stood in the doorway. He bore a striking resemblance to Xianxia. It was none other than the Cao family's young dragon. Xianxia, Chang'an, so you really are here. He stared daggers at Chang'an, making no attempt to hide his killing intent. If not for the presence of two other Cyan Cloud sect disciples in the courtyard, he would have likely already struck. Your elder Cao. Su Yuyan recognized the man. She knew of Cao Xiaolong, of course. She had just recently heard the news that he had successfully achieved Foundation establishment. Cao Xiaolong replied coldly, "That's right, and I know you, your elder Qin's disciple." "Elder Cao, what business do you have with Brother Li?" Her expression grim, Su Yuyan rose and stood protectively in front of Chang'an. The killing intent of a Foundation establishment expert was far too much for a mere chi-refining sixth-layer cultivator like Chang'an to bear. Chang'an is your brother. Cao Xiaolong's brow furrowed, and his gaze shifted subtly. Su Yuyan nodded. That's right, Brother Li has saved my life multiple times. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be alive today. At her words, Cao Xiaolong's frown deepened. He had no wish to offend Elder Chen, who stood behind Su Yuyan. But he had to kill Chang'an, no matter what. His killing intent didn't diminish in the slightest. On the contrary, it grew even more intense. Let me kill him. I will explain everything to your master afterward. Elder Cao, if you want to kill my brother Li, you'll have to get past my sword first. Su Yuyan's expression turned ice cold. With a sharp sheeing, her longsword left its sheath, its edge gleaming menacingly. Wielding her treasure sword, she faced the Foundation establishment great cultivator, Cao Xiaolong, without a trace of fear on her face. Zhang Yuerong, who had been standing to the side, also stepped forward. Elder Cao, might there be some misunderstanding here? She asked in a gentle, placating voice. Taoist Li is just an ordinary loose cultivator. Why would he provoke such intense killing intent from you? This was the very question Su Yuyan wanted to ask as well. Chang'an was a low-ranking loose cultivator, while Cao Xiaolong was a celestial pride of his sect. Their paths should never have crossed, so why was there such conflict between them? Cao Xiaolong's killing intent was so potent it was clear this conflict would not end until one of them was dead. Cao Xiaolong pointed a finger at Chang'an and declared coldly, "This man is my heart demon. If I cannot kill him, my cultivation will never advance another step in this lifetime." What heart demon? Su Yuyan and Zhang Yuerong were both stunned. Those two words were not to be spoken lightly. According to sect records, once a heart demon formed, a mild case would halt one's cultivation path, while a severe case could lead to madness and insanity. But how could Chang'an have become the heart demon of a Foundation establishment great cultivator? Su Yuyan glanced back at Chang'an, her eyes filled with confusion. "I'm not sure about this either," Chang'an said, shaking his head. He wanted to know the reason just as much as they did. Su Yuyan turned back to face Cao Xiaolong. "Elder Cao, could you please explain what happened?" "You have no need to know." Cao Xiaolong's face was ashen, his voice ice cold. No one knew that he and his brother, Cao Xiaolin, shared an extremely special connection. When Chang'an's sword had slit Cao Xiaolin's throat, he, too, had felt the agony of impending death. From then on, he was plagued by nightmares. At first, he only dreamed of the moment Chang'an killed Cao Xiaolin. But gradually, the vision changed. The Cao Xiaolin in the dream became him. In the dream, he would be covered in blood, his breath fading, pathetically begging Chang'an for mercy, only to have his own throat torn open by Chang'an's sword chi. Again and again. He had already been killed by Chang'an in his dreams more than 10 times. The terrifying nightmares had an ever-increasing effect on him. The gruesome images of his own death replayed constantly in his mind, leaving him perpetually on edge. Chapter 145. Chapter 145. So it was you. The scenes from the nightmare were already seared deep into Cao Xiaolong's mind. Not long ago, when he was attempting to break through to Foundation establishment, that gory scene had reappeared uncontrollably, nearly causing him to suffer a chi deviation. Fortunately, he had made ample preparations, purchasing a large number of treasures in advance designed to bring about a calm heart and peaceful mind. In the end, he precariously managed to succeed, becoming a foundation establishment great cultivator. Xianxia felt he couldn't let this continue, so he visited an elder in his sect who was skilled in divination and asked him to perform one for him. The result of the divination left him utterly shocked. According to the divination, the nightmare would eventually come true. In other words, he, just like his younger brother, would die by Chang'an's sword qi. And so Xianxia made a decision. Strike first to gain the upper hand. Actually, he had never planned to interfere in the matter between Chang'an and the Cao family. He had grown up in the sect and felt no real sense of belonging to the Cao family. His only desire was to continue his cultivation there. However, the divination showed that Chang'an would kill him. He had no choice but to leave the sect. First, I'll eliminate Chang'an, then I'll return to the sect to cultivate. If Chang'an had known what he was thinking, he would have been utterly astonished. This was because Chang'an had never once considered killing Xianxia. Before today, the two had never met and had no direct conflict. But today, Xianxia had suddenly appeared at his door, radiating killing intent. This, in turn, sparked killing intent in Chang'an toward him. Su Yuyan, step aside, I will kill him today. Xianxia shouted coldly, his aura surging. As a foundation establishment great cultivator, his aura alone was enough to immobilize most qi-refining cultivators. However, just at that moment, the aura of another foundation establishment cultivator suddenly appeared outside the courtyard. With it came a fiery red flash of light. This is bad. Xianxia instantly sensed the aura of death and scrambled to send out a spiritual artifact to block the fiery red light. Boom! The two collided, and a tyrannical wave of spiritual power instantly blasted out in all directions. The fiery red light shot backward, landing in its owner's hand and revealing itself to be a crimson dagger. Zheng. Xiaoxialong's expression darkened as he glared fixedly at the newcomer. The one who had just attacked him was none other than Zheng Qingqing. She was dressed in a long, fiery red gown, her gaze cold and indifferent as she looked at him. Xiaoxialong, you're a foundation establishment cultivator, for heaven's sake. How can you be so shameless as to attack a qi-refining junior? The feud between the Cao family and the Zheng family was long-standing. As the foundation establishment cultivators of their families' younger generation, they were naturally mortal enemies. This was their first time meeting, and the earlier clash had allowed them to gauge each other's strength. Both were in the early stage of foundation establishment, having broken through not long ago. Their strengths were more or less equal. If they continued to fight, they would only attract the attention of other foundation establishment cultivators. If the commotion grew too large, neither of them would benefit. Chang'an, consider yourself lucky today. Xiaoxialong knew full well that he could no longer kill Chang'an today. Without a moment's hesitation, he forcefully suppressed all his killing intent and rage, retracted his foundation establishment aura, and turned to leave. Before he left, his icy voice drifted into Chang'an's ears. Remember, your luck won't last forever. I'll remember that. Chang'an replied via sound transmission, his expression unchanging. Soon, Xiaoxialong's figure vanished from sight. A moment later, Zheng Qingqing walked into the courtyard. Her red gown fluttering, her gaze shifted to Su Yuyan, who stood protectively in front of Chang'an. In that same instant, Su Yuyan's own bright, lively eyes met hers. For a brief moment, their gazes met, clashing in midair before they both looked away. Su Yuyan cupped her hands, greetings, senior. There's no need to be so formal. Any friend of Taoist Li is a friend of mine. Zheng Qingqing said, a gentle smile gracing her features as she spoke, not putting on the airs of a senior. Chang'an stood up and thanked Zheng Qingqing. Thank you for your help, miss. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid Xiaoxialong would have attacked by force. Think nothing of it, Taoist Li. You were only dragged into the feud between our two families in the first place. Zheng Qingqing replied gently. Nearby, Su Yuyan suddenly chimed in, telling Chang'an, Brother Li, even if Xiaoxialong had really attacked, I could have protected you. I have a protective treasure from my master. Chang'an smiled. I know, Yuyan, thank you for today as well. It's nothing. Didn't you always protect me in the past, Brother Li? Su Yuyan gave a slight smile. Afterward, the three of them sat down in the courtyard and began to talk. With Li Chang'an's introduction, Su Yuyan and Zhang Qingqing formally met. Then, Zhang Qingqing explained the purpose of her visit. Taoist Li, I returned to King Marketplace a short while ago. I gave the 2 life-extending treasures to our ancestor, extending his life by 20 years. Congratulations, miss. Li Chang'an understood. For the next 20 years, Zhang Qingqing would be free, no longer needing to worry about her family's affairs. Zhang Qingqing announced that she had officially become an honored guest elder of the 10,000 Treasures Tower. From now on, she would be permanently stationed there. The 10,000 Treasures Tower's requirements are fairly relaxed. I just need to refine a few Tier 2 elixirs each month, and they provide all the materials. That's excellent. Li Chang'an congratulated her again. This was equivalent to the 10,000 Treasures Tower, providing materials specifically to help Zhang Qingqing improve her proficiency in alchemy. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before Zhang Qingqing could attempt to refine a foundation establishment pill. Just then, Zhang Qingqing suddenly took out a shimmering golden token and placed it in front of Li Chang'an. Taoist Li, this token signifies the status of a VIP at the 10,000 Treasures Tower. With it, you can purchase certain precious treasures that are not shown to the general public. Zhang Qingqing explained. So, the 10,000 Treasures Tower only sells a fraction of its treasures to the public. That's right. I see. Li Chang'an had long suspected that the 10,000 Treasures Tower wasn't as modest as it appeared. If it really only had the treasures on display, it might as well have been called the 1,000 Treasures Tower, or even the 100 Treasures Tower. In the past, he was just an ordinary loose cultivator. His status wasn't high enough. He wasn't worthy of being taken seriously by the 10,000 Treasures Tower. But now, with this VIP token, things would be completely different. I was just worrying about not being able to find the treasures I need. Thank you, miss. Li Chang'an thanked her sincerely and put the token away. The moment he finished speaking, Su Yuyan spoke up again, her voice somewhat urgent. Brother Li, my sect's treasure vault has plenty of treasures too. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Okay, I will. Li Chang'an replied instantly. Zhang Qingqing pressed her lips into a smile, her beautiful eyes glancing at Su Yuyan, and said no more about treasures. She changed the subject, bringing up Cao Xiaolong again. By the way, Taoist Li, have you had any previous conflicts with Cao Xiaolong? No. That's odd. Why was his killing intent so strong? If it was just because of our family's feud, there would be no need for him to target you so specifically. Zhang Qingqing looked puzzled. Things having reached this point, Li Chang'an saw no reason to hide it any longer. The Cao family would likely get the news from Cao Xiaolong soon, and there were almost certainly Zhang family spies within the Cao family. Miss, I think it might be because I killed his younger brother, Cao Xiaolin. What? Zhang Qingqing was stunned for a moment. Her limpid eyes stared blankly at Li Chang'an, as if she were meeting him for the very first time. So it was you who killed him. Chapter 146. Chapter 146. A bizarre matter resigned to bad luck. After Cao Xiaolin's death, the conflict between the Cao and Zhang families grew increasingly fierce. The Cao family's foundation establishment ancestor, Cao Xianxia, had attacked King Marketplace several times, each assault causing a tremendous uproar. Although things had been much quieter recently, the same question lingered in everyone's mind. Who exactly killed Cao Xiaolin? It was a question that the disciples of both the Zhang and Cao families, as well as the countless loose cultivators in and around King Marketplace, all wanted an answer to. The Cao family believed the Zhang family was responsible. The Zhang family, on the other hand, thought it was more likely that Cao Xiaolin's brazen behavior had provoked some powerful expert who was just passing by. Even Zhang Qingqing had once thought so. Until today, when she heard a piece of news from Li Chang'an that she found utterly unbelievable. It was you. Zhang Qingqing had known for a long time that Li Chang'an liked to hide a portion of his true strength. She had also guessed that Zhang Jinbao's death was likely connected to him. However, no matter how deeply Li Chang'an concealed his abilities, it was highly unlikely he could have been a match for Cao Xiaolin. In Zhang Qingqing's eyes, Li Chang'an's cultivation was still only at the qi refining 6th layer. Originally, the Thousand Faces divine skill that Li Chang'an used to alter his aura couldn't deceive a cultivator, who was a full major realm above him. But he had since made many gains, acquiring various types of magic and treasures that could change his aura. Now, not even a Foundation establishment great cultivator could see through to his true cultivation. Taoist Li, did you really kill him? Zheng Qingqing asked in a very serious tone, her eyes fixed on Li Chang'an's face. Li Chang'an's expression remained unchanged as he nodded. Young miss, why would I lie to you? Cao Shaolin did indeed die by my hand. Could it be that you've already reached the qi refining 9th layer? As she spoke, Zheng Qingqing carefully sized up Li Chang'an, as if trying to discern his true cultivation. Without a cultivation at the qi refining 9th layer, how could Li Chang'an possibly have killed Cao Shaolin? Based on his apparent strength, he would have trouble even protecting himself against Cao Shaolin. Young miss, with my talent from a low-grade spiritual root, how could I possibly have cultivated to the qi refining 9th layer by now? Li Chang'an shook his head slightly, feigning a wry smile. I just happened to acquire a treasure at an auction. It came from a secret realm and could only be used once, but it could unleash power approaching the middle stage of Foundation establishment. Oh, Taoist Li, you had such a fortunate encounter. Yes. Li Chang'an had already prepared several different stories for this in his mind. Any one of them would be enough to fool her. After all, his own strength was genuinely too weak. It seemed impossible that he could have defeated Cao Shaolin in a direct confrontation. That day, I went out to hunt a demon beast to obtain a certain type of demon beast essence blood. Unfortunately, my luck was terrible, and I ran into Cao Shaolin, who was cultivating in the mountain forest. Li Chang'an recounted the story slowly, his voice steady, betraying no hint of falsehood. In his telling, he had not intentionally set out to kill Cao Shaolin. However, Cao Shaolin pursued him relentlessly and went too far, insistent on taking his life. Left with no choice, he had to use that secret treasure. Cao Shaolin's defensive treasures were simply no match for power approaching the middle stage of Foundation establishment. Cao Shaolin was overconfident and thought he could take me down easily, so he wasn't well defended, allowing me to succeed in a single strike. Li Chang'an's account was very matter-of-fact. But to Su Yuyan and the others, it sounded fraught with peril. A low-level loose cultivator facing off against a Foundation establishment seed from a Foundation establishment family. How dangerous was that? If Li Chang'an hadn't obtained that secret treasure, he would most likely be dead in some unknown mountain forest by now. Brother Li, your journey has been so incredibly difficult. Su Yuyan's heart ached for him, and she sighed softly. She had long ago heard her master say that the path of a loose cultivator was far more arduous than that of a sect disciple. In the cultivation immortality realm, the vast majority of loose cultivators didn't live to die of old age. Nearly all of them perished in constant conflict. They might throw away their lives for the most pitifully small opportunity. No matter what, as long as I'm alive, that's all that matters. Li Chang'an smiled, his mindset positive. After killing Cao Shaolin, I worried about retaliation from the Cao family's Foundation establishment ancestor, so I never dared to speak of it. I've let the Zheng family bear a great deal on my behalf. Please forgive me, young miss. It's nothing. Zheng Qingqing didn't seem to mind. The Cao family has always been eyeing the Zheng family like a tiger stalking its prey. Even if Cao Shaolin hadn't died, the Cao family would have found another excuse to move against the Zheng family. Cao Shaolin was arrogant, but he had the right to be. If he hadn't died, he most likely would have already reached Foundation establishment by now. Li Chang'an's action was equivalent to eliminating a future Foundation establishment-level enemy for the Zheng family. The Zheng family should be thanking him. Besides, if it weren't for the Zheng family, Li Chang'an wouldn't have been targeted by Cao Shaolin in the first place. In the end, the Zheng family was obligated to help him bear the consequences of this matter. Taoist Li, you risked your life to eliminate a great enemy for my Zheng family. For this, my family is in your debt. As she spoke, Zheng Qingqing offered him a jade pendant. It was a type of communication treasure she had obtained in a secret realm. There were 2 of these jade pendants in total. She held one, and with Li Chang'an holding the other, the 2 of them could contact each other at any time. Taoist Li, refine this jade pendant and carry it with you from now on. If Cao Shaolong or Cao Zhengsheng makes a move against you, inform me immediately. Understood, thank you, young miss. Li Chang'an expressed his thanks, took the jade pendant and refined it. This is much better than the jade token that Pei Yingyao gave me, he thought. This one can be used indefinitely. Nearby, Su Yuyan's brow furrowed slightly. She took a stack of life-saving Tier 2 talismans from her storage pouch. Brother Li, take these talismans. Yuyan, you haven't reached Foundation establishment yet. These talismans are useful for you. Li Chang'an shook his head, refusing to accept them. He himself was a Tier 2 talisman master. He had more Tier 2 talismans in his storage pouch than he could ever use. But Su Yuyan was insistent, determined to make him take them. Her eyes reddened as she said softly, Brother Li, what if that cow Xiaolong attacks you suddenly and Elder Zheng can't get there in time? These talismans can at least buy you some time. All right. Seeing how persistent she was, Li Chang'an found it hard to refuse any longer and accepted some of the talismans. After that, he voiced a doubt that was on his mind. When I killed Cao Xiaolin, there was no third person present. How did Cao Xiaolong know it was me? Could it be that there's some kind of special connection between the brothers? Upon hearing this, Su Yuyan and the others all showed thoughtful expressions. After a moment, Jiang Yuerong hesitated before speaking softly. Taoist Li, I once read about a similar case in an ancient book in the library. There was a pair of blood brothers, and after the younger brother was killed, the older brother dreamed of the scene of his murder. Such a bizarre thing can happen. Li Chang'an was surprised. Such things are extremely rare. If it happened to him, he could only count it as bad luck. Afterward, the group discussed it and felt that this must be the case. After all, Cao Xiaolin himself had said before he died that he and his brother were of one heart. That evening, Su Yuyan left with Jiang Yuerong. She secretly made up her mind. She had to reach Foundation establishment as soon as possible and then find a chance to eliminate Cao Xiaolong. Chapter 147. Chapter 147. Acquiring Treasures in Succession. The next day, early in the morning, Li Chang'an went to the 10,000 Treasures Tower, carrying the VIP token given to him by Zheng Qingqing. According to Zheng Qingqing, the 10,000 Treasures Tower was backed by the Jin family, one of the 7 great clans. The Jin family was especially skilled at commerce, with their disciples spread across the Zhao country cultivation immortality realm, engaging in trade with all the major powers. The shopkeeper of the 10,000 Treasures Tower was named Jin Yue, a core disciple of the Jin family. Upon seeing Li Chang'an, he greeted him with a casual air. Taoist Li, are you planning to sell some talismans today? Same as always, same price. The 10,000 Treasures Tower is fair to all. We won't lowball you. Li Chang'an smiled and shook his head. Manager Jin, I'd like to buy something. Oh, and what might you be looking for, Taoist Li? Jin Yue didn't pay him much mind. A loose cultivator like Li Chang'an, who was only at the middle stage of qi refining, was unlikely to be very wealthy, even if he had some practical skills to his name. However, when he saw the token in Li Chang'an's hand, his expression changed instantly. Taoist Li, I knew you were more than meets the eye. Jin Yue's face was wreathed in smiles, his tone suddenly much warmer. Anyone who possessed a VIP token either had impressive strength of their own or a powerful backer. Either way, they were not someone to be offended. Li Chang'an was most likely the latter. Manager Jin, do you have any treasures in the 10,000 Treasures Tower suitable for an Earth Element Spirit Beasts tier breakthrough? Li Chang'an glanced around. The first floor of the 10,000 Treasures Tower still looked a bit shabby. Most of the treasures on display were common Tier 1 treasures like elixir pills, magical artifacts, and talismans. They sold well, but none of them were particularly special. As for Tier 2 treasures, there were a few. They were also quite common, the kind that even Foundation establishment cultivators could use. If these are the only treasures here, it hardly lives up to the 10,000 treasures name. You jest, Taoist Li, please follow me. With a smile, Jin Yue led Li Chang'an to the second floor. The treasures displayed on the second floor were far fewer than on the first, but their value was higher and they were much rarer. Almost all of them were things one would seldom see. Taoist Li, this is a Huayuan fruit, a Tier 2 low-grade Earth Element Spirit medicine. After an Earth Element demon beast consumes it, its demonic power will surge for a short time, which is somewhat beneficial for a tier breakthrough. Jin Yue picked up an entirely jet-black spirit fruit and explained patiently. After that, he went on to introduce more than 10 other treasures, all of them Tier 2. All of them were helpful for an Earth Element demon beast's advancement. However, none of them were treasures that could directly increase the success rate. Li Chang'an frowned, not quite satisfied. Manager Jin, don't you have anything that increases the success rate of the advancement? Well, Jin Yue hesitated. He turned, opened a hidden door, and took out a jade box. Taoist Li, this is a bitter spirit ginseng. It's extremely precious and can increase the success rate by over 5%. Furthermore, it can be used in conjunction with other treasures, and the effects will stack. As he spoke, he opened the jade box. Inside the box was a spirit ginseng, earthy yellow all over with delicate skin, looking as if it had been carved from yellow jade. This is the bitter spirit ginseng. Li Chang'an nodded slightly. He's finally bringing out the good stuff, he thought. He had been to the 10,000 Treasures Tower many times before. But in the past, no matter how he asked, Jin Yue always claimed to have nothing of the sort. This time, due to his change in status, Jin Yue was finally willing to bring out such a treasure. Taoist Li, this bitter spirit ginseng is of very high quality and should meet your requirements. It's just that. Jin Yue paused, a hesitant look on his face. Li Chang'an asked him, just what? The price of this bitter spirit ginseng is a bit steep. You're worried about the price. Li Chang'an couldn't help but laugh. Do I really look that poor? Manager Jin, I have your VIP token. Surely I can afford it. Since he had said as much, Jin Yue no longer hesitated and stated the price. Taoist Li, this bitter spirit ginseng sells for 4,100 spirit stones. As he spoke, he carefully observed Li Chang'an's expression. If Li Chang'an couldn't afford it and showed any sign of difficulty, then he would give Li Chang'an an easy way out. This was precisely why he hadn't brought out such a treasure earlier. He had been worried Li Chang'an wouldn't be able to afford it, leading to an awkward situation. Things like that had happened before. Some customers acted very confident when asking for prices, but when it came time to pay, they couldn't produce enough spirit stones. Feeling they had lost face, they would throw a tantrum right there in the 10,000 Treasures Tower. Fortunately, Li Chang'an was not that kind of person. He just tried to haggle a little. Manager Jin, isn't the price for this bitter spirit ginseng a little high? Before this, the heavy spiritual earth he bought from Zhou Yu had only cost 3,300 spirit stones. Its effect was similar to this bitter spirit ginseng. Hearing this, Manager Jin put on a troubled expression. Sighed Taoist Li, the price really isn't high. It's always been this much. How about 3,500? After some haggling, Li Chang'an bought the bitter spirit ginseng for 3,700 spirit stones. Jin Yue looked pained, as if Li Chang'an had gotten a massive deal, but inwardly he was quite pleased. At the same time, he was a little surprised that Li Chang'an could actually produce so many spirit stones. After that, Li Chang'an purchased another Tier 2 treasure, an earth cloud mushroom, for 3,600 spirit stones. The effect of this earth cloud mushroom was similar to the bitter spirit ginseng, and its effect could also be stacked. Having acquired 2 such treasures in a row, Li Chang'an was in high spirits. Besides these 2, the 10,000 Treasures Tower had over a dozen other items that could increase a demon beast's advancement success rate, but none were earth element treasures, so they didn't meet his needs. Taoist Li, you've come at a rather unfortunate time. Jin Yue said apologetically. Not long ago, the beast-taming Zhou family came to us and bought a large number of beast-taming treasures. We originally had several high-quality earth element advancement treasures, but they bought them all. It's all right. To have obtained 2 items today is already beyond my expectations. Li Chang'an replied with a smile. Afterward, Jin Yue thumped his chest and guaranteed that as soon as any new earth element advancement treasures arrived, he would notify Li Chang'an first. Before long, Li Chang'an bought another treasure. It was an earth muddling pill, a Tier 2 elixir that could suppress the backlash from a failed advancement for an earth element spirit beast. This elixir pill had a similar effect to the cold nether pill that Li Chang'an had once bought for his profound water turtle. The only difference was that this one was of the earth attribute. With this pill, even if Da Wang's advancement fails, he won't suffer a severe backlash. At worst, he'll recover after a few months of rest. Li Chang'an carefully put it away. Da Wang had always been the hardest worker in his household, either helping him keep an eye on people or standing guard for him. His contributions were truly meritorious. Naturally, Li Chang'an would not treat him poorly. I've gotten 3 treasures today, but it's still not a sure thing. Dawang's talent is higher than mine, but he's ultimately no match for Xiaohai. I'll need to gather a few more treasures. Then, Li Chang'an asked about Foundation establishment treasures. Jin Yue immediately began his introductions. The 10,000 Treasures Tower still had over 10 types of Foundation establishment spiritual objects. However, almost all of them only increased the success rate by 5%, making them the lowest grade of Foundation establishment spiritual objects, and none of their effects could be stacked with other spiritual objects. Only 2 of them offered a 10% increase to the success rate. But, in terms of actual effectiveness, they couldn't even compare to the 7-leafed colored lotus that Li Chang'an already possessed. Chapter 148. Chapter 148. Treasure Devours Spirit Beast. High-quality Foundation establishment spiritual objects. Once one appeared, would be claimed in advance by the major noble families and sects. The Jin family naturally had better ones, but it was impossible for them to be sold at the 10,000 Treasures Tower. After all, the Jin family's own disciples also needed Foundation establishment spiritual objects. Manager Jin, are you sure there are no better Foundation establishment spiritual objects? Li Chang'an asked again, his tone solemn. Jin Yue looked troubled and shook his head. Taoist Li, businessmen like me are the most honest. We value integrity. How could I possibly deceive you? There really are no more. Very well then. Li Chang'an wasn't too disappointed. He had expected as much. He then asked about the Foundation establishment pill. Jin Yue still shook his head. Taoist Li, we really don't have that. Do you have any Tier 2 demon cores? We don't have those either. Watching Jin Yue shake his head repeatedly, Li Chang'an fell silent. He continued to browse the 10,000 Treasures Tower and bought some bone-tempering grass, finally gathering all the treasures needed for the 9th stage of body refining. At this point, all the treasures required for the entire demon blood body tempering skill. Li Chang'an had finally gathered them all. Next, he just needed to follow the steps and cultivate, and his physique would gradually grow stronger until it reached Tier 1 peak. Manager Jin, does the 10,000 Treasures Tower sell body refining techniques? We do. I need one that is Tier 2 or higher. We have those too, it's just that. Is it because of the price again? Li Chang'an couldn't help but ask, seeing his hesitant expression. That's not it. Jin Yue hurriedly denied it. Although Tier 2 body refining techniques are expensive, with your wealth, Taoist Li, you can certainly afford them. However, the ones we have are all imperfect. What do you mean? Li Chang'an was puzzled. Could the cultivation techniques be incomplete? Jin Yue sighed and replied, Taoist Li, please follow me. He then led Li Chang'an into a separate, hidden room. Inside the hidden room, hundreds of cultivation technique and magic manuals were on display. With a wave of his hand, Jin Yue retrieved 3 books from the collection. They were, impressively, all Tier 2 body refining techniques. He placed the 3 books in front of Li Chang'an. Taoist Li, take a look at this one, the Golden Stone Body Refining Technique. As he spoke, he pointed to the first book and began a serious introduction. This body refining technique is the best one in the 10,000 Treasures Towers collection. It can be cultivated to Tier 2 peak. Oh? Li Chang'an's interest was piqued. A Tier 2 peak physique would be strong enough to withstand an attack from a Foundation establishment peak cultivator. In other words, as long as he didn't provoke a Golden Core Master, his life would almost never be in danger. And since Golden Core Masters were exceedingly rare, most cultivators would go their entire lives without seeing one. The chances of provoking one were very small. Manager Jin, does this body refining technique have any side effects? It does. Jin Yue sighed. He opened the Golden Stone Body Refining Technique and explained it to Li Chang'an in detail. Taoist Li, after cultivating this technique, your flesh and blood will gradually turn to gold and stone, making it impossible to maintain your original appearance. Furthermore, you will be unable to switch to body refining techniques of other attributes in the future. You'll only be able to cultivate gold or earth element ones. I see. Li Chang'an was inwardly surprised. The side effect was indeed significant. I have no desire to become a stone man. Unless it's an absolute last resort, there's no need to cultivate this technique. As for the second body refining technique, It could be cultivated to the Tier 2 middle stage, but it caused the body to grow uncontrollably. Someone who once cultivated this technique had only reached Tier 1 peak when his height already exceeded 2 zhang, turning him into a veritable monster. This side effect is also significant. Li Chang'an frowned. Thankfully, the demon blood body tempering skill I practice has no side effects, just intense pain. Taoist Li, this last body refining technique can also be cultivated to the Tier 2 middle stage. Its side effects are damage to one's mind and a tendency toward fits of rage. Jin Yue picked up the last book and introduced it to Li Chang'an. After hearing him out, Li Chang'an had no choice but to give up. He could only entrust Jin Yue with keeping an eye out for him. The Jin family was, after all, a noble family of merchants that frequently dealt with major powers. Perhaps one day they might obtain a perfect body refining technique with no side effects. Rest assured, Taoist Li, I will definitely keep an eye out for you on this matter. Then I'll have to trouble you, Manager Jin. After settling this matter, Li Chang'an asked about the legacies of talismans and puppets. Jin Yue stated, Taoist Li, my family possesses Tier 2 legacies for both of those, but they cannot be traded to outsiders. Not unless you become an honored guest elder of my Jin family. Becoming a Jin family honored guest elder came with a strict requirement for one's cultivation. One had to be a foundation establishment great cultivator. And Li Chang'an obviously did not meet this requirement. Even if he did, he would not join the Jin family so easily. Taoist Jin, is there no other way? Li Chang'an asked with a frown. A legacy isn't a physical object after all. You just need to copy it and trade it to me. As he spoke, he took out an extremely expensive gold element treasure and pressed it into Jin Yue's hands. This Jin Yue happened to be a gold spirit root cultivator. The treasure Li Chang'an had produced would be of immense benefit to him. But Jin Yue's expression changed instantly, and he hurriedly returned the treasure to Li Chang'an. Taoist Li, this is absolutely out of the question. My Jin family has rules that no one can break. Jin Yue truly coveted Li Chang'an's treasure. However, his fear of the family's rules suppressed his desire for the treasure, and he didn't dare to secretly copy the legacy's contents for Li Chang'an. Seeing this, Li Chang'an could only put the treasure away. So throwing money at the problem didn't work. He felt a little regretful. They say money makes the world go round, but in the end, it isn't omnipotent. After this, Li Chang'an stopped buying treasures and instead sold some things he had no use for, such as the treasures he had obtained from the storage pouches of the Blood and Fire Three Brothers. That evening, Li Chang'an returned to his residence. He showed Da Huang the treasure he had just bought as a form of encouragement. Da Huang, your advancement is getting closer and closer. Woof! Da Huang's eyes filled with joy, and its tail wouldn't stop wagging. Afterward, Li Chang'an prepared the medicinal liquid as usual, got into the medicinal bath, and silently endured the intense pain of body refinement. The 8th stage of body refining is nearing its end. It should be over soon. He mentally calculated the time. After a while, he took the Spirit Doctor legacy from his storage pouch and continued studying its contents. Time flew by, and several months passed in the blink of an eye. One day, news came from Zhou Yu. She had a clan brother named Zhou Chuan who happened to possess an earth element treasure capable of increasing a demon beast's chances of successful advancement. She would introduce him to Li Chang'an tomorrow. Zhou Yu's quite efficient. Li Chang'an was reasonably satisfied. His payment had not been in vain. That night, inside the house, Li Chang'an was taking his usual medicinal bath. Before long, the excruciating pain racking his body suddenly vanished. Success! A look of joy spread across Li Chang'an's face as he rose from the medicinal tub. At this moment, his whole body was scorching hot, his skin crimson, and white steam rose from him. The muscles all over his body were clearly defined. His physique had reached a new level. The 8th stage of body refining was complete. From now on, he could withstand an attack from a chi refining 8th layer cultivator. Just one last stage to go. Without hesitation, Li Chang'an immediately began to prepare the medicinal liquid for the 9th stage of body refining. Just then, a golden light appeared before his eyes. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, ominous. Zhu Yu will visit to introduce you to her Zhou clan member, Zhou Chuan, stating that he possesses the earth element treasure, withered earth root, which can increase the success rate of advancement by 10%. You will purchase this treasure and inform your spirit beast Dawang, but unexpectedly, the treasure will suddenly lash out and devour your spirit beast. Chapter 149. Chapter 149. Opinionated. Withered earth root, devouring a spirit beast. The sudden, evil trigram left Li Chang'an stunned. He knew of a treasure like the withered earth root. It was recorded in his spirit doctor inheritance. Outwardly, it was just a seemingly withered, ordinary root. Logically, a treasure like this shouldn't be able to develop sentience, he thought. How could it suddenly erupt and devour a spirit beast? Li Chang'an frowned, pondering for a long while. A withered root devouring Dawang. He thought it over, and the mental image was just too bizarre. After all, Dawang was already a Tier 1 peak spirit beast. The fact that the withered earth root could devour him meant its power had already surpassed the limits of Tier 1. Even if it hadn't reached Tier 2, it had to be close. I can't be careless about this. Li Chang'an thought for a moment. To be safe, he couldn't accept this treasure. The next day, around noon, Zhou Yu arrived outside Li Chang'an's courtyard. Beside her was a member of the Zhou clan, a stout man of about 30 dressed in a brocade robe. He was none other than her cousin, Zhou Chuan. Yu, this Li Chang'an is just a loose cultivator at the middle stage of qi refining. Can he really afford my withered earth root? Zhou Chuan was skeptical, suspecting that Li Chang'an was a fraud. Zhou Yu didn't bother to explain. After all, as long as the transaction went through, she would get paid. Is Daoist Li in? Zhou Yu knocked on the courtyard gate. A moment later, Li Chang'an opened the gate, invited the pair into the courtyard, and brewed them some high-quality tea. This must be Daoist Zhou Chuan. That's right. Zhou Chuan took a sip of tea and nodded slightly. He got straight to the point. From his storage pouch, he took out a jade box. Daoist Li, this is the withered earth root, an extremely precious earth element treasure. It can increase the success rate of advancement by 10%, and its effect can be stacked with other treasures. After speaking, he opened the jade box. Inside the box was a pitch-black, somewhat withered-looking root. Judging by its appearance, it was indeed a withered earth root. Daoist Li, you can inspect it if you have any concerns. Zhou Chuan handed the jade box to Li Chang'an. But Li Chang'an didn't take it. His real body had already quietly retreated deep into the array, leaving only an illusion body behind while he pushed the array to its limit. Daoist Li, what's the matter? Noticing Li Chang'an's odd expression, Zhou Chuan asked. Li Chang'an frowned slightly, pretending to be observing it carefully. After a moment he replied, Daoist Zhou, what's inside your jade box doesn't seem to be a withered earth root. How is that possible? Zhou Chuan's expression flickered, as he immediately picked up the withered earth root to inspect it. After inspecting it carefully, he set it down and said solemnly, Daoist Li, this is the withered earth root. There's no mistake. You can examine it yourself. That won't be necessary. Li Chang'an waved his hand, his mind on the strange divination. He had no desire to touch the thing. Daoist Zhou, I'm truly sorry, but I don't intend to buy this item. Well, Zhou Chuan was displeased, but he didn't let it show. Since the transaction had failed, there was no reason for him to stay. He promptly took his leave. Behind him, Zhou Yu looked puzzled. She quietly sent a sound transmission to Li Chang'an. Daoist Li, that should be the withered earth root. Don't you need this kind of treasure? Daoist Zhou, there's something wrong with that withered earth root. I had a bad feeling when I was about to examine it. How could that be? Zhou Yu couldn't understand. The withered earth root was a treasure. What kind of treasure could possibly give someone a bad feeling? Li Chang'an sent back a sound transmission. Daoist Zhou, you should advise your cousin to dispose of that withered earth root. All right, I'll let him know. Filled with doubt, Zhou Yu hurried away. Outside the courtyard, Zhou Yu caught up with Zhou Chuan and told him what Li Chang'an had just said. When he heard, Zhou Chuan's brow furrowed and his expression soured. HMPH. I think that Li Chang'an just couldn't produce the spirit stones and deliberately said there's a problem with my treasure to give himself a way out. I don't think Daoist Li is that kind of person. Yu, how many times have you even met him? Don't be fooled by his appearance. Zhou Chuan stuck to his own opinion. From the beginning, He didn't believe that a loose cultivator like Li Chang'an could produce so many spirit stones. Therefore, he didn't take the advice. How could he just casually dispose of such an expensive treasure? A few days later, another person came to him for a trade. The newcomer's identity and status were quite impressive. It was none other than Huang He Master's 8th disciple, Bai Hao. This was an expert at the middle stage of foundation establishment. "Elder Bai, please sit." Zhou Chuan was thrilled, overjoyed. "It's a good thing I didn't trade with Li Chang'an or listen to his advice," he thought. "Otherwise, I never would have had the chance to meet Bai Hao." Bai Hao smiled and asked amiably, "Zhou, is your withered earth root still available?" "It is, Elder Bai, please have a look." Zhou Chuan immediately took out the jade box and opened it. Bai Hao took out the withered earth root, inspected it carefully, and nodded slightly, quite satisfied with its quality. "Not bad. If I can gather a few more earth element treasures, my gray rock rat will have a good chance of advancing." Soon, the two signed a spirit contract. Bai Hao didn't linger and left with the withered earth root. Time flies in cultivation. More than half a year passed in a flash. During this time, Li Chang'an acquired another earth element treasure, which could increase the success rate of advancement by 5%. At this point, all the advancement treasures in his possession, when added together, increased the success rate by more than 20%. However, there was still little news about the treasures he needed for his own foundation establishment. Not long after, he went to visit Zhang Qingqing. After all, Zhang Qingqing wanted to nurture another foundation establishment cultivator for the Zhang family, so she was always keeping an eye out for relevant news. "Young mistress, you are now a foundation establishment great cultivator and an esteemed honored guest elder of the 10,000 Treasures Tower. Is there a way to directly buy a foundation establishment pill?" "No." Zhang Qingqing sounded somewhat helpless. After reaching foundation establishment, her access to information and treasures had indeed expanded compared to her time in qi refining. But the foundation establishment pill was still very difficult to obtain. If it were easy to obtain, then not so many foundation establishment families would have fallen into decline. Zhang Qingqing sighed softly. Right now, she was also worrying about a Tier 2 demon core. The Zhang family had one, but it was used for her own foundation establishment. During that alchemy session, the Zhang family's old Tier 2 alchemist lacked the necessary stamina. A problem occurred midway through the refining, creating only one formed pill. The other two were wasted pills. In other words, she only had one chance at foundation establishment. Fortunately, she succeeded. Zhang Qingqing said bluntly that if she ultimately couldn't get a Tier 2 demon core, she would go directly into the depths of the Black Dragon Mountain range and try to kill a Tier 2 great demon. Go into the mountains to kill a demon. Li Chang'an was secretly surprised. Zhang Qingqing was as bold as ever. Back in Qing, she had frequently ventured into dangerous secret realms to build the foundation for her breakthrough to foundation establishment. The danger level of the Black Dragon Mountain range was no lower than that of the secret realms. Countless qi refining cultivators had died there, and quite a few foundation establishment great cultivators had perished as well. According to rumor, in the depths of the Black Dragon Mountain range, there even existed a Tier 3 Demon King. Chapter 150. Chapter 150. No need for plots, strength breaks all. If she was unlucky enough to run into a Tier 3 Demon King in the Black Dragon Mountain range, it would all be for nothing. Li Chang'an could only wish Zhang Qingqing good luck. I hope she doesn't run into any demon beasts that are too powerful. Before he knew it, evening had fallen. Li Chang'an bid farewell to Zhang Qingqing, returned to his residence, and continued to temper his body. There are 9 stages of body refinement, and the pain of each is more intense than the last. No wonder so many cultivators can't persevere. He frowned slightly, his entire body submerged in a medicinal bath. The pain of the 9th stage was almost too much for even him to bear. Left with no other choice, he could only distract himself by reading through the spirit doctor's legacy. Just then, a divination suddenly manifested, indicating that an enemy was about to attack. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, Auspicious. A puppet carrying an array-breaking treasure will launch a sneak attack. The puppet possesses 30% of the strength of an early stage of foundation establishment cultivator. It will be destroyed by the profound water turtle and you will obtain many precious puppet materials. 30% of the strength of an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Chang'an was secretly astonished. A puppet like that should be at the threshold of Tier 2. The materials required to build it must be incredibly precious and expensive. Who's rich enough to use such an expensive puppet against me? Chang'an pondered for a moment. The only ones who could afford a puppet like this are most likely foundation establishment great cultivators. That instantly narrowed the list of suspects. It's either the two foundation establishment cultivators from the Cao family or Huang Feng's master, Kang. Of course, Chuxing is also a possibility. With a mind like Chuxing's, he probably couldn't come up with such a plan. If he really wanted to get me, he'd most likely do what he did last time, barge in and try to break the array with brute force. Chang'an shook his head slightly. It's unlikely to be Chuxing. Oh well, no matter who it is, since they're coming, they can leave their treasure behind. The divination had mentioned two kinds of treasures. One was the materials from the puppet itself. The other was the array-breaking treasure it carried. Both were quite valuable. I've spent a lot of spirit stones recently. This is a perfect chance to recoup some of my losses. Late at night, at the foot of Yellow River Mountain, inside Huang Feng's residence, Kang walked over to Huang Feng's sickbed and took out a small jade bottle from his storage pouch. Though his expression was cold, his tone carried a hint of concern. Fenger, this is a vessel continuation pill. It works wonders for damaged meridians. Swallow it, and I will help you guide its medicinal power. It's a vessel continuation pill. Huang Feng was deeply moved. He knew that vessel continuation pills were incredibly expensive. There were only a few even in the treasure vault of Yellow Crane Immortal City. The materials required for refining these elixir pills were simply too rare. Even a foundation establishment great cultivator would struggle to gather them all. Kang must have paid an enormous price to obtain this elixir pill. Master, this disciple is foolish. I'm truly not worthy of such a sacrifice. Don't be ridiculous. Kang chided, his face stern. Swallow this elixir pill at once. Yes, master. 100 emotions welled up in Huang Feng's heart as he took the elixir pill and swallowed it in one gulp. Kang placed his hand over Huang Feng's dantian and sent a sliver of magical power into his shattered meridians, slowly guiding the pill's potency to repair them. The entire process was exceedingly long and required immense concentration. There could be no room for error. As time wore on, even a foundation establishment great cultivator like Kang began to feel the strain. About an hour later, his face had grown pale, beads of sweat dotted his forehead, and even his arm had begun to tremble slightly. A short while later, Kang withdrew his hand and sighed. The potency of this one vessel continuation pill isn't enough. I will find you a few more. Master, your grace is immense. This disciple does not know how I can ever repay you. Looking at Kang's pale face, Huang Feng was moved beyond words, and tears streamed from the corners of his eyes. A rare smile touched Kang's lips, and his voice was gentle. Fenger, once you've recovered, you must dedicate yourself to your training. As long as your cultivation becomes high enough, that will be all the repayment I need. Master, rest assured, I will train diligently from now on. Huang Feng swore an oath in his heart. If his meridians could be healed, he would devote himself entirely to his cultivation and never disappoint his master again. Nearby, Huang Liang watched the scene, also moved beyond measure. Having a master like him is truly the greatest fortune of my life. Kang seemed strict with them, but he actually cared for them deeply, far more than the masters of many other cultivators. After all, there was a common saying in the cultivation immortality realm. A master opens the door, but you must enter by yourself. After taking on disciples, many cultivators would only give them a spiritual land to train on and a cultivation technique, and then bother with them no further. Su Fugui's master, Wang Fun, was a prime example. But Kang was different. He frequently checked on his two disciples' cultivation progress and took great care of them, treating them as if they were his own flesh and blood. He even intended to deal with his disciples, enemies for them. Fenger, tonight will be Chang'an's last. Master, are you really going to act yourself? Huang Feng was worried. Even Chuxing had failed to kill Chang'an. He was afraid that Kang might also meet with an accident. Shouldn't we use some kind of strategy to lure Li Chang'an out of Yellow Crane Immortal City, and then? There's no need for such trouble. Murong Kang cut him off. Fenger, you must remember this. In the face of absolute power, all schemes are meaningless. Yes, I understand. Rest assured, that puppet has 30% of my strength. A mere chi-refining cultivator has no hope of stopping it. Once the array is broken, Li Chang'an's death is certain. The night deepened, and a bright moon hung high in the sky. All of Yellow Crane Immortal City had fallen silent. At that moment, Li Chang'an was already hidden deep within his array. The profound water turtle was concealed in a corner of the courtyard. Before long, the thundercloud annihilation array was suddenly triggered. He's here. In the next instant, a figure completely shrouded in a black robe slipped quietly into the courtyard. The moment it appeared, it triggered the array's killing formation. However, it was prepared. It released several treasures to temporarily hold off the array. Then it took out a treasure that looked like a chessboard and gently placed a black stone upon it. Clack! With that soft clack, everything in the courtyard instantly froze. The very air seemed to solidify, and the array ground to a halt. An eerie silence descended. This forbidden spirit chessboard really works like a charm. Murong Kang sneered and put the chessboard away. With the array gone, Li Chang'an was nothing more than a lamb to the slaughter in his eyes. But just as he was about to enter the house, a terrifying water element technique, filled with unimaginable power, instantly blasted through the protective treasures around him and slammed heavily into his body. Boom! The puppet shuddered, unable to react. In an instant, it was blown to smithereens, exploding on the spot into a pile of broken parts. It was all over in the blink of an eye. Murong Kang had no idea where the enemy was or even who it was, and just like that, he lost control of the puppet. How is that possible? Back in his residence, Murong Kang's face was ashen with disbelief. With a single slap, he shattered the jade table before him. It must be Pei Yingyao. She must have left some kind of protection for Li Chang'an. The power that had just appeared was far too tyrannical. It was genuine foundation establishment power. How could his puppet possibly withstand that? What he'd said earlier was right. There was no need for schemes when strength could crush everything. Except, the one who was crushed wasn't Li Chang'an, but he himself. Chapter 151. Chapter 151. Illusion Poison. Pei Yingyao. Murong Kang's expression was grim as he muttered her name under his breath. If it weren't for her help, how could Li Chang'an possibly have destroyed that puppet? From the very beginning, Murong Kang had never considered Li Chang'an a threat. The one he truly feared was Pei Yingyao, a sword cultivator at the middle stage of foundation establishment. Sword cultivators were renowned for their combat prowess and were often more skilled at killing than other cultivators of the same tier. And Pei Yingyao's strength was even more terrifying than that of other sword cultivators at her level. Murong Kang knew that if he fought Pei Yingyao head-on, he likely wouldn't last 10 moves. However, Pei Yingyao is dedicated to her one-hearted sword Dao. She can't protect Li Chang'an forever. Back then, she couldn't even protect her own disciple, Murong Kang mused. Everyone in the Yellow Crane Mountain lineage knew that one of Pei Yingyao's disciples had been killed by a tribulation cultivator. Li Chang'an wasn't her disciple. At most, he had a few treasures she had given him for protection. The foundation establishment techniques Pei Yingyao gave Li Chang'an can probably only be used a few times. At this thought, a new idea gradually formed in Murong Kang's mind. At that moment, Huang Feng propped himself up from his sickbed and asked with concern, "Master, did something happen? Is there anything I can do to help?" "It's nothing, Fenger, just focus on recovering." Murong Kang wiped the grim look from his face, turned, and offered a few words of comfort. He didn't hide anything. He directly told the two brothers, Huang Feng and Huang Liang, that the operation had failed. They hadn't managed to kill Li Chang'an. Instead, they had lost a valuable puppet and the array-breaking treasure. They had suffered heavy losses. Upon hearing this, Huang Feng's face turned deathly pale, and he couldn't help but blame himself. "Master, it's all my fault. If I hadn't provoked that Li Chang'an, you wouldn't have lost so many treasures." "Don't overthink it. This has little to do with Li Chang'an. It was merely a round of long-distance magical combat between me and senior sister Pei." As he spoke, Murong Kang glanced in the direction of the mountainside. His eyes held both fear and killing intent. feelings he normally dared not show. A moment later, he left Huang Feng's residence and returned to his own. Inside, he sat cross-legged, formed a hand seal, and once again cast that complex magic. In the palm of his hand, a blood-red human figure immediately appeared, bearing the exact likeness of Huang Feng. Compared to last time, the figure was slightly brighter. Good, the vessel continuation pill is indeed effective. With a thought from Murong Kang, the figure in his hand instantly transformed. It changed into the likeness of Huang Feng's senior brother, Huang Liang. This figure's blood-red glow was even more brilliant, casting a blood-red hue over the entire room. Huang Liang is already at the Qi refining 9th layer, so the devouring effect will be excellent now. However, should I help him reach foundation establishment? If I could devour a foundation establishment cultivator, the benefits to me would be even greater, but foundation establishment resources are just so hard to come by. Murong Kang pondered for a long time, a bloody light glinting in his eyes, his features twisting into a subtly horrifying expression. He looked like a man-eating demon. Meanwhile, in the courtyard of his inner-city residence, Li Chang'an was taking stock of his recent gains. It's a shame. Ziohai's magic was too powerful. It shattered a lot of the puppet materials, greatly reducing their value. The courtyard was littered with scattered puppet materials and components. Li Chang'an felt a pang of heartache as he looked at the mess. He walked over to a piece of material, gestured with his hand, and picked it up to examine it closely. Profound silk wood, a tier 2 low-grade spirit material. If it were intact, a small piece like this could sell for 300 spirit stones. A pity Ziohai's attack left a crack in it. He shook his head and continued to inspect the other materials. Cyan pattern stone, a tier 1 top-grade material, completely smashed. And this purple cloud wood. About an hour later, Li Chang'an finished taking inventory. His current skill in puppet making had long since reached the peak of tier 1. Although he wasn't at tier 2 yet, he could roughly determine the specific abilities of the destroyed puppet by examining its materials. This must have been an illusion puppet, Li Chang'an thought as he looked at the dark green jade stone in his hand. When active, it could create several illusionary bodies to confuse an enemy's judgment. This jade stone was called illusory poison jade, a tier 2 low-grade treasure that he had dismantled from the puppet's core. This kind of poison Dao treasure was extremely rare. If used as an array material, it could create an illusion array. If used to make a puppet, it could produce a special type like the illusion puppet. This illusory poison jade is quite valuable. Li Chang'an weighed it in his hand. It had a considerable weight. This illusion puppet's ability to create illusionary bodies must have been quite impressive, but it was destroyed before it even had a chance to use it. This meant his opponent hadn't taken him seriously. If Li Chang'an had been the one attacking, he would have definitely activated the illusionary bodies at the first opportunity to test for any potential dangers in the courtyard. To underestimate me so much. It shows that the opponent is indeed a foundation establishment great cultivator who looks down on Qi refining cultivators. A smile touched Li Chang'an's lips. It's a good thing I was underestimated. It saved me a lot of trouble. Just as he was thinking this, there was a sudden movement in his sleeve. Hello? Intrigued, Li Chang'an looked at his cuff. A plump round bug crawled out. It was multicolored and emanated a sense of longing. This was the 10,000 poison goo that Li Chang'an had obtained from 4th Lady May's spirit beast bag. You want to eat this? Li Chang'an waved the illusory poison jade in his hand. The 10,000 poison goo once again conveyed its desire, which served as a response. Its tier wasn't high. It was currently only a tier 1 late stage and hadn't even reached its peak. This was because poison Dao treasures were simply too scarce in the region of Yellow Crane Immortal City. Almost all of them had been collected by cultivators of the 5 Poison Wanderer lineage. Furthermore, Li Chang'an had been busy with his own advancement and that of his 2 spirit beasts. He hadn't paid much attention to the 10,000 poison goo. If you want to eat it, go ahead. He smiled and handed the illusory poison jade over. The 10,000 poison goo conveyed a happy emotion. Its fat, round body immediately latched onto the entire piece of illusory poison jade, and it slowly retreated back into Li Chang'an's sleeve. With this poisonous goo, Li Chang'an was immune to the vast majority of tier 1 poisons. After it absorbs this illusory poison jade, it should be able to advance to the peak of tier 1. Li Chang'an thought for a moment. He had no immediate plans to help the 10,000 poison goo gather advancement treasures, simply because poison Dao treasures were too difficult to obtain. He would leave it up to fate. For now, it was better to focus on himself and his two spirit beasts. After cleaning up the courtyard, Li Chang'an returned to his room and took out the chessboard like array-breaking treasure. The Forbidden Spirit chessboard. It took him a great deal of effort to complete its refinement. The chessboard was a Tier 2 middle-grade spiritual artifact of extremely high quality, verging on top grade. Relying on his own strength alone, Li Chang'an would have been unable to refine it. In the end, he had to borrow the power of the profound water turtle. In the center of the front of the board was an inlaid black stone, and on the back, a white stone was inlaid in the center. Black pawn forbidden array, white pawn forbidden people. After he refined it, Li Chang'an immediately understood its functions. A short while ago, the reason the Thundercloud Annihilation Array had stopped operating was because it had been affected by the black stone. Chapter 152. Chapter 152. News of an Inheritance. A white piece could immobilize a cultivator. It would leave them unable to move, use any magic, or activate any treasure completely at the enemy's mercy. It couldn't help but remind Li Chang'an of the legendary immobilization technique from myths of old. This chessboard is quite a treasure. Li Chang'an tested it out for a bit and was especially pleased. With his current strength, wielding this chessboard, he could immobilize almost any cultivator in the Qi refining stage. If he entered the borrowed state, he might even be able to affect a foundation establishment cultivator. But Li Chang'an had no intention of provoking a foundation establishment cultivator. Being able to restrain Qi refining cultivators was enough. Time flew by. Another month passed. One day, as Li Chang'an was practicing talisman painting, a sudden stir came from his sleeve. Has it finished absorbing the illusory poison Jade? With a thought, he took out the 10,000 poison goo. The goo insect's aura was slowly growing stronger, its body shimmering with rainbow colors. Before long, the colors gradually dimmed, and its aura settled at Tier 1 peak. A Tier 1 peak 10,000 poison goo should be able to protect me from almost any Tier 1 poison now. Li Chang'an casually took out a few Tier 1 top-grade poison pills, crushed them, and turned them into a cloud of toxic mist. Almost instantly, the 10,000 poison goo reared up. It absorbed all the poisonous mist in a flash. But it wasn't finished. Its antennae slowly extended, piercing Li Chang'an's skin to check if he had inhaled any of the mist. After its inspection, it retracted its antennae and sent a reassuring feeling to Li Chang'an. Not bad. Li Chang'an was very satisfied. After communicating with it, he learned that the little insect could now release a wide variety of poisons. Some were instantly lethal, others drove people mad, and some could even corrode the body. Although it hadn't yet reached the realm of 10,000 poisons, it was already quite terrifying. After absorbing the illusory poison Jade, it had gained a new, hallucinogenic ability. Carrying this 10,000 poison goo is like carrying around a whole arsenal of poisons. Li Chang'an pondered for a moment, and suddenly felt a bit like a cultivator from the 5 poison wanderer lineage. However, he was an upright and kind person, and would never proactively use poison to harm others. With a thought, he returned the little insect to his sleeve, and resumed his cultivation. Several months flew by. One day, Su Fugui paid him a visit, inviting Li Chang'an to a birthday banquet. A birthday banquet. Li Chang'an's immediate instinct was to refuse. He hadn't forgotten the incident where the Zhou family elder went berserk at a longevity banquet. Too many people had died that day. Even some of the foundation establishment cultivators in attendance were injured. In the end, it was Pei Yingyao who had to step in to end it all. Brother Li, don't worry. This isn't a banquet for a foundation establishment great cultivator. It's for my eldest martial sister, Tang Surin. Su Fugui saw his concern and quickly explained. No foundation establishment cultivators would be attending this time. Even their master, Wang Fun, wouldn't be there, as he had left the immortal city to visit a friend. In total, only a dozen or so cultivators had been invited. Almost all of them were close friends of their Yulai restaurant lineage. As Su Fugui's brother Li Chang'an naturally received an invitation. As for whether he would go or not, it was entirely up to him. Since there won't be any foundation establishment cultivators and I can sample a lot of spiritual cuisine, I might as well go. Chang'an didn't overthink it and immediately agreed. After all, it was a kind gesture from Fugui. The quality of spiritual cuisine at such banquets was exceptionally high. A single meal was no less beneficial than consuming a large quantity of spiritual elixirs. Of course, Chang'an wouldn't go empty-handed. After Su Fugui left, he opened his storage pouch and picked out a decent wood element treasure to give as a gift. This clear heart lotus is pretty good. It's very suitable for Tang Suren. Chang'an placed it in a jade box and then resumed his cultivation. Time slipped by, and soon it was midnight. A new divination appeared. Divination has been refreshed. Today's divination, Auspicious. You are invited to a banquet, but a poison cultivator unexpectedly appears. They secretly release a colorless, odorless poison mist in an attempt to harm the cultivators present. Fortunately, you receive a warning from the 10,000 poison goo, kill the assailant, and obtain the treasure on their person. A poison cultivator. Chang'an frowned to himself. This banquet was to be held inside the Yuelai restaurant. Most of the time, the Foundation establishment great cultivator Wang Fun presided over the restaurant. Almost no one dared to cause trouble there. For a poison cultivator to dare make a move meant they knew Wang Fun had gone to visit a friend and was not in the restaurant. A poison cultivator showing up just as Elder Wang leaves to visit a friend, that's a bit too coincidental. According to Su Fugui, only his 3 disciples knew about Wang Fun's trip. Could someone have leaked the information? Or perhaps, the poison cultivator might have been invited by one of them. The image of Su Fugui's second martial brother, Mo Chen, immediately appeared in Chang'an's mind. Fugui's master doesn't have much time left. After his death, his treasures will naturally be divided among his disciples. For Mo Chen, one less disciple means one less person to share the inheritance with. Chang'an couldn't help but think of Lu Yuanji from Black Wind Mountain. Back then, simply to compete for the Foundation establishment resources in their master's possession, Lu Yuanji had been framed by his junior martial sister and forced to flee his sect. Although Su Fugui said his second martial brother was fine. When it came to a conflict of interest, one had to assume the worst of others. The next morning, Chang'an arrived at the Yuelai restaurant. Having not seen her for some time, he noted that Tang Suren's complexion was much better than before. She no longer had the appearance of someone who had been poisoned. Taoist Li, please have a seat. All right. Since everyone present was a friend, there was no need for strict formalities. After presenting his gift, Chang'an took a seat in the room. Su Fugui sat down next to him, enthusiastically introducing him to the others in the room. Brother Li, this is Taoist Mozai of the puppetry Mo family. She's a good friend of my eldest martial sister. She came to Yellow Crane Immortal City this time to investigate the Tribulation cultivator faction, the Black Puppet Pavilion. A pleasure to meet you, Taoist Mo. Chang'an clasped his hands in a salute to a female cultivator in black robes. Mozai's expression was cold and somewhat indifferent. She didn't say much, merely giving a slight nod. She was a celestial pride of the Mo family, already at the Qi refining 9th layer. Her strength and status were the highest in the private room. Afterward, Chang'an was introduced to the dozen or so other cultivators in the room. Before long, the banquet began. All sorts of spiritual cuisine were served one after another. During the meal, many people deliberately tried to strike up a conversation with Mozai, attempting to befriend her. But Mozai's attitude remained lukewarm. She gave only cursory replies, clearly feeling that these people were not worth befriending. Soon, someone asked about the Black Puppet Pavilion. Miss Mo, I heard that the Tribulation cultivator who founded the Black Puppet Pavilion was a traitor from the Mo family. That's right. This matter wasn't much of a secret. Many people knew about it. Mozai didn't deny it. She said in a low voice, that person is my cousin. He not only took a Tier 2 puppet comparable to a Foundation establishment great cultivator, but also copied the family's puppet inheritance. Upon hearing this, everyone present was shocked. The Mo family's puppet inheritance reached up to Tier 3, enough to tempt even a golden core master. Mozai knew they were getting ahead of themselves and clarified, not the entire inheritance, just a portion of it, but it still reaches Tier 2 and absolutely cannot be allowed to spread. I see. Li Chang'an's interest was piqued. The Black Puppet Pavilion was one of the three major tribulation cultivator factions in the Three Tribulations Alliance. He had thought the Black Puppet Pavilion only had Tier 2 puppets. He never expected they also had a Tier 2 puppet inheritance. In the future, I can use my identity as the tribulation cultivator Li Fan to make more contact with the Black Puppet Pavilion. Chapter 153. Chapter 153. The Senior Sisters' Regret. Once the conversation started, the crowd began a chat about the major tribulation cultivator factions in the region. The Five Poison Wanderer and the Three Tribulations Alliance were, naturally, the main topics. Before they knew it, the banquet was more than halfway over. Waiters continuously brought out more spiritual cuisine and spirit wine. Just then, the goo in Li Chang'an's sleeve suddenly sent him a warning. A poisonous mist is spreading. Li Chang'an was startled. Even with the prior warning from his divination, he hadn't noticed a thing. And the others present were, for the most part, quite powerful. Yet not a single one of them had detected the poisonous mist. Even a celestial pride like Mozai remained oblivious, still chatting with the others. What a bizarre poison! Li Chang'an had no idea who had administered it. He remained vigilant, keeping a close eye on his surroundings. About a quarter of an hour later, someone suddenly rubbed their forehead and sighed. "Sigh, I must be a lightweight today. I'm already dizzy after just a few drinks." Hearing this, the others all laughed. But Mozai's expression changed. She immediately realized something was wrong. "Everyone hold your breath. Take an antitoxic pill immediately." "What?" Seeing her grave expression, the others quickly caught on. How could this small amount of spirit wine get a cultivator drunk? It was clearly poison. But who would use poison at Tang Suren's birthday banquet? Had a poison cultivator infiltrated their gathering? Without time for further thought, they hurriedly opened their storage pouches, took out various antitoxic pills, and threw them into their mouths. "Quick, we have to get out of here." Mozai's pretty face was grim as she immediately stood up. The others rose as well, intending to flee. As long as they got outside, they would be safe. A poison cultivator wouldn't dare kill people on the street. However, the moment they stood up, their legs gave out and their bodies went limp, causing them to collapse back into their seats. This is bad. The poison has already taken deep root. The same happened to Mozai. She couldn't even take a single step. Not only was she dizzy and utterly drained of strength, but even the magical power inside her body seemed to have frozen, impossible to mobilize in the slightest. Beside Li Chang'an, Su Fugui's face was pale and he started to panic. "Brother Li, how are you?" "Fugui, don't panic yet." Li Chang'an reassured him. He was of course fine. The tentacles of the 10,000 poison goo had burrowed into his flesh, siphoning away all the toxins in his body. He scanned the room, taking in everyone's expressions. The others' reactions all seemed natural, except for second senior brother Mo Chen, whose panic and terror seemed a bit forced. But Li Chang'an couldn't be sure. Just then, the door to the private room was suddenly thrown open, and a young cultivator dressed as a waiter walked in. "Hey, it seems you've all figured it out." "Who are you?" Tang Suren asked through gritted teeth, her face dark. She never would have imagined something like this could happen at her own birthday banquet. The waiter sneered. "The name is Xianxia." Xianxia. Inside the room, many people's faces changed drastically. That name was far too familiar to them. This man was a disciple of the Five Poison Wanderer. His poison techniques were superb, and he had once gained notoriety for poisoning and killing one of Huang He Master's grand disciples. "Xianxia, you dare enter Yellow Crane Immortal City?" "Why wouldn't I dare?" Xianxia's eyes glowed green. His cruel gaze swept over the crowd, finally landing on Mozai. "I didn't expect such a bonus prize. If I sell you to the Black Puppet Pavilion, you should fetch a handsome price." "You?" Mozai's face flushed with anger, her killing intent surging. Unfortunately, she was now heavily poisoned, no different from a cripple, and couldn't muster a shred of magical power. Was she really going to fall into the hands of a tribulation cultivator today? Hey, Taoist Mo, don't even think about resisting." Xianxia let out a strange laugh and opened his spirit beast bag. He was just about to capture Mozai inside it. But just then, a dark light flashed across the room. Whoosh! A shuttle-shaped spiritual artifact, moving at incredible speed, instantly shattered his skull. Boom! Right before everyone's eyes, Xianxia's head exploded like a watermelon, leaving only a headless corpse behind. The others in the room hadn't yet processed what had happened. They all wore looks of utter shock. The next moment, Xianxia's body collapsed. Come! Chang'an gestured with his hand, summoning the man's storage pouch into his grasp. Then he used the information fed back to him by the 10,000 poison goo to find the corresponding poison and its antidote. Only then did the others in the room finally react, all of them staring at Chang'an in disbelief. Taoist Li, you weren't poisoned. Even Mosai found it incredible. After all, even she had been poisoned. How could Chang'an be completely unscathed? Chang'an smiled. Didn't you all just take an antitoxic pill? I did too. It just so happens that mine took effect. It worked just like that. The others looked at each other, feeling it was too much of a coincidence. However, they were fortunate for this coincidence. Otherwise, not a single one of them would have escaped today. At this, Mosai couldn't help but ask, Taoist Li, what was that shuttle-shaped magical artifact? Chang'an glanced at her with a smile. Taoist Mo, everyone has their secrets. It's impolite to ask too many questions. Mosai froze for a moment. She suddenly realized her attitude had been consistently arrogant. She had assumed that Chang'an was just an ordinary loose cultivator, who would surely be eager to please a noble family descendant like herself. Thinking of this, Mosai said apologetically, Taoist Li, I spoke out of turn. Please forgive me. It's nothing. Chang'an, still smiling, handed her a portion of the antidote. Taoist Mo, here's the antidote. Why don't you try it first? Logically, he should have given the antidote to his friend, Su Fugui, first. But he was worried there might be something wrong with the antidote, so he had Mosai test it for poison first. Mosai saw through his plan and was stunned. Given her status and background, she should never have been the one to test for poison. However, Chang'an was currently the only one in the room who wasn't poisoned, so he was the one calling the shots. Mosai could only silently accept the antidote and swallow it in one gulp. A moment later, some color returned to her face and she slowly exhaled. There's nothing wrong with the antidote. Taoist Li, you can distribute it to the others without worry. Good. Chang'an no longer hesitated and distributed the rest of the antidote. Before long, everyone had recovered and began thanking Chang'an one after another. Thank you, Taoist Li. If it weren't for you this time, our fates would have been uncertain. After what had happened, the banquet naturally could not continue. No one knew if there might be other poisons in the spiritual cuisine on the table. After a while, those present began to leave one by one. Chang'an was also about to depart. Just then, Tang Suren suddenly sent him a sound transmission. Taoist Li, do you possess a treasure that specifically counters poisons? Chang'an glanced at her, naturally understanding why she was asking. Back then, Tang Suren had fought a disciple from the 5-poison wanderer lineage over the 7-leafed colored lotus, which resulted in her meridians being corroded by a strange poison. Although she didn't look poisoned now, her meridians had still not healed. Her asking this naturally meant she hoped Chang'an would help cure her. But Chang'an didn't want to expose the existence of his 10,000 poison goo. Taoist Tang, you're overthinking it. The only reason I was cured this time was truly just a stroke of luck. With that, he cupped his hands in a farewell gesture and didn't linger. He turned and left the restaurant. Behind him, Tang Suren watched his retreating back, her heart filled with mixed emotions. After this incident, she could see that there was far more to Chang'an than met the eye. Perhaps he really did possess a treasure that could counter poisons, but they were neither friends nor family. Why should Chang'an help her? Thinking of this, Tang Suren felt a pang of regret and let out a soft sigh. Perhaps I should have given him that 7-leafed colored lotus back then. Chapter 154. Chapter 154. Seeing Through Illusions. Tang Suren didn't know. That 7-leafed colored lotus was already in Chang'an's hands. The world works in mysterious ways. So many things were full of coincidences. After returning to his residence, Chang'an took out the poison cultivator's storage pouch and searched through it carefully. There are so many poisonous items. More than half the elixir pills in the storage pouch were poison pills. The treasures were nearly all poison Dao treasures. The cultivation technique was a poison technique as well. All in all, as expected of a disciple from the 5 poison wander lineage, the man was poisonous through and through. I can feed these poison Dao treasures to the 10,000 poison goo. It will bolster its foundation and make it easier for it to advance in the future. With a thought, Li Chang'an took out a Tier 1 top-grade poison Dao treasure. From his sleeve, the 10,000 poison goo smelled the treasure's aura. Its plump, round body crawled out, and it began to beg Li Chang'an for it. "Eat up." Li Chang'an smiled and fed the treasure to it. More than half of today's haul could be fed to this bug. Li Chang'an was not a poison cultivator and had no intention of practicing poison techniques, so most of the things in the storage pouch were useless to him. He had thought there wouldn't be much of a haul this time. But then his gaze suddenly froze. He had spotted an incredibly unique spiritual artifact. "This is..." With a thought, Li Chang'an took it out of the storage pouch. The next moment, an eye-shaped spiritual artifact appeared in his hand. He tried to refine it but found it surprisingly difficult. He had to borrow power from his profound water turtle to finally succeed. Once he did, he learned the spiritual artifact's details. A Tier 2 middle-grade spiritual artifact, the Pupil of Truth. A look of delight appeared on Li Chang'an's face. This was an incredibly rare spiritual artifact that could see through illusions. With this, Li Chang'an could see through the disguises of many other cultivators. The treasure also had other uses. For example, it could be used to spot overlooked treasures or identify the weak points in arrays to reveal hidden traps. All in all, it had a vast number of uses. Its value far exceeded that of treasures of the same tier. Song Zio's poison technique was impressive, but his cultivation level wasn't high. For him to obtain a treasure like this, he must have been a man of great fortune. However, that fortune now belonged to Li Chang'an. He went into the courtyard and activated the Pupil of Truth while in the borrowed state. Soon, he saw the overall structure of the Thundercloud Annihilation Array and discovered several weak spots. What a fantastic treasure! Completely satisfied, Li Chang'an carefully put it away. For more than half a year after that, Li Chang'an remained in seclusion, focusing solely on his cultivation. He even reduced the time he spent on talisman painting. This was because he could feel that he was close to the Qi refining 8th layer and wanted to break through as soon as possible. One day, Zhang Qingqing suddenly appeared at his door with some news. Zhang Lingfeng failed at Foundation establishment. Li Chang'an was surprised. "Yes." Zhang Qingqing nodded slightly and explained the situation. Since she had already used the Zhang family's last Foundation establishment pill, Zhang Lingfeng had been struggling for a long time to gather the necessary items for Foundation establishment. But he was unwilling to wait any longer. Therefore, he used a vein protection pill, a Foundation establishment spiritual object, and other supplementary treasures to force a breakthrough attempt within the Zhang clan territory. He barely passed the trial of the physical body. After all, he was still young, and his body hadn't suffered any major injuries. However, he failed to overcome the magic power barrier, his attempt ending not long after it began. His foundation at the Qi refining 9th layer wasn't deep enough. Without the aid of a Foundation establishment pill, it's perfectly normal that he couldn't overcome the magic power barrier. After hearing her explanation, Li Chang'an made his assessment. Zhang Lingfeng had been too hasty. Perhaps Zhang Qingqing's successful Foundation establishment had provoked him, making him unwilling to spend a few more years building his foundation. However, he had used a vein protection pill after all. He did not suffer a major backlash. He would recover after a few months of rest and could try for Foundation establishment again. Li Chang'an asked, "Young lady, if you happen to get another Foundation establishment pill in the future, you won't give it to him, will you?" "I won't." Zhang Qingqing knew what Li Chang'an was thinking. She explained that there were several other members of the Zhang family who were also suitable candidates for Foundation establishment. Zhang Lingfeng wasn't the only one qualified to attempt Foundation establishment. That's good. Li Chang'an felt a little more at ease. He hadn't forgotten how Zhang Lingfeng had targeted him multiple times back in King Marketplace. Once I succeed in Foundation establishment, I'll definitely go back and make him answer for it. Meanwhile, in the Zhang clan territory, upon a sickbed, Zhang Lingfeng's face was pale, his heart filled with indignation. He slammed his fist on the bed. "It's not fair. If I had a Foundation establishment pill this time, I would have definitely succeeded. He let out a low roar, his voice hoarse. Why did they give the Foundation establishment pill to Zhang Qingqing? How am I any worse than her? The very thought of Zhang Qingqing, who had already reached Foundation establishment, made his chest tighten with frustration. He wanted to tear apart everything around him. Outside the room, the clan members from his branch of the family heard his roars and couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. Yellow Crane, Immortal City. Back in the residence, Zhang Qingqing said her goodbyes and was about to leave. At this moment, Chang'an suddenly asked a question. Young lady, before we came to Yellow Crane, Immortal City, we both had a sense of unease. We suspected someone in the Zhang family had leaked your information. Have you found out who it was? That matter. Zhang Qingqing hesitated, her expression complicated. She shook her head slightly and replied, Taoist Li, once you successfully reach Foundation establishment, I will tell you everything. All right. Chang'an asked no more questions and watched Zhang Qingqing leave. He returned inside and resumed his seclusion. A few days later, Chang'an went to the black market. He intended to buy some treasures that promoted calm heart and peaceful mind, which would be useful during his breakthrough. Suddenly, Luo Beitong found him. Taoist Li, come with me to the Three Tribulations Alliance's mission posting chamber, quickly. There's a mission that's perfect for you. Oh, what mission? Chang'an asked in surprise. Luo Beidong was also a member of the Three Tribulations Alliance. In fact, he was a member of more than 10 other Tribulation cultivator factions and was even the leader of a few smaller ones. He could be said to wear many hats. It explained how he was always so well informed. Taoist Li, a fellow cultivator, just posted a mission. He's looking to hire 3 others to enter a secret realm with him and explore an ancient cave residence. Explore a cave residence. Hearing this, Chang'an immediately shook his head. He was about to refuse without a second thought. Luo Beidong hastily explained. Taoist Li, don't be so quick to refuse. There's a treasure in that cave residence that you'll want. What treasure? Stardust Earth. At those words, Chang'an's interest was piqued. Stardust Earth. It was rumored to be a type of spiritual earth that fell from beyond the heavens, making it a superior choice for cultivating spirit plants. At the same time, it was also an advancement treasure that could increase an earth element demon beast's chance of a successful promotion by 10%. Furthermore, it could be used in combination with other treasures, and the effects would stack. Taoist Li, take me to have a look. All right, follow me. One after the other, the 2 of them headed for the secret chamber where the Three Tribulations Alliance posted its missions. Before long, Chang'an was looking at the detailed information for the mission. The mission had been posted by someone named Feng Taoist. While exploring the ancient wood secret realm outside Yellow Crane Immortal City, he had stumbled upon a cave residence. Inside, he had found a small spirit field. The soil in the spirit field was precious stardust earth, and several extremely rare spirit medicines were growing in it. He had been ecstatic at the time, and had intended to take both the stardust earth and the spirit medicines. Unfortunately, he accidentally triggered an array and nearly lost his life. He had no choice but to give up.